Hi, and just before I play the video, I just wanted to cover a couple of things off. Firstly, I thought it'd be a great idea to do this video outside. We did this in a disused quarry in Dorset. What I didn't know was it'd be full of people. So if you see me looking around in the video, it was incredibly distracting to have the people around me. It's something I've got to get used to as a vlogger, but you know, early days, and apologise if it's distracting. Secondly, you'll see I have a microphone here in the video. Unfortunately, the audio from that track wasn't any good, and so you'll hear the audio through the microphone attached to the camera. There's quite a bit of wind noise in some of it, so I apologise for that now. But I hope you enjoy the video anyway. Hello and welcome to another episode. This time we're doing something a bit different. I'm not going to do any photography, but I am going to talk about my Nikon Z7 and the reasons why I think buying this camera has made me a better photographer. So first things first, this was my first full frame camera. It was my first mirrorless camera, and I felt I was going a little bit into the dark, as it were. Given this was Nikon's first mirrorless camera. My previous camera was a Nikon Z7-200, so that's an APS-C sensor, and I had to sell that camera and those lenses to buy this camera. So as I say, it was a bit of a leap in the dark for me. And what I wanted to say was, this is how this camera's made me a better photographer. It's not a video about why this is better than Canon, why this is better than Sony or any other camera manufacturer, and it's not, you know, why mirrorless is better than SLR cameras. So what I'm hoping is that by talking about the things that I like about this camera, which are some of the features and some of the functions, then perhaps you can investigate those on your own cameras as well, and so you can benefit as well. So it's definitely not bashing other manufacturers' cameras at all. So reason number one is the electronic viewfinder, so this thing here. So I'm sure when mirrorless cameras first came out, they were seen as the weak point of mirrorless cameras. So what electronic viewfinder does, if you don't know, is instead of me seeing directly what the lens is seeing, so a path through the lens, I'm seeing essentially another TV screen, which is what the sensor is going to see, and not what the lens is going to see. So I think when they first came out, they were quite low resolution. These little TV screens in here, they were a bit laggy. This one isn't. It's superb, and the reason I have to have a great viewfinder is, I don't know about you, but I compose my shots mostly through the viewfinder. It cuts out all of the distractions around me, and you know, often if I can't get a composition that I like through the viewfinder, I can't get a composition that I like. Hold on a minute. So the EVF, I didn't really say why I liked it. You know, apart from the fact that I frame my images using the EVF, what I like about the EVF as opposed to the viewfinder, optical viewfinder, is I can see what the final picture's going to look like. So when I'm using filters, I don't see a black image, which I would have done on my old camera. I see what the final JPEG that will be presented on the back screen here, what that's going to look like. So before I take the shot, so you know that's invaluable in terms of getting your shots right in the field. Okay, so reason number 2, 45 megapixels. 45 megapixels. I guess it's a cheat. Maybe it hasn't made me a better photographer, maybe it's made me a worse photographer, but I get better images using 45 megapixel sensor, mostly because even though I said in reason 1 that the electronic viewfinder helps me cut out distractions, I often find, you know, that stick that you didn't notice sticking in the edge of the shot, ruining your shot. 45 megapixels, I can crop that out. I don't lose too many pixels on my APS-C sensor. 20 megapixel camera, you know, that really did sort of affect me, and I really worried about cropping my images. Now I don't, and perhaps I should. Perhaps I should do better edge patrol when I'm taking my pictures, but you know, I think it's fundamentally helped me get better compositions. So reason number 3 is this lens. So this is a 24-70 4S lens. You might call it a kit lens because it came with this camera, but it's a very, very high quality lens, and I think kit lens is selling it way short. It's sharp across the frame. It feels like a pro lens. It's not quite a pro lens, but it feels like one. And you know, as I said, when I bought this camera, I sold all my APS-C lenses, and so I only had this lens, and by only having this lens for the first few months, I really got to know this lens, and I would recommend anyone to, even if you've got a bag of lenses, go and shoot with one lens. You know, 24-70 is quite a good lens. Shoot with it somewhere in the middle. Go and shoot with this lens for a month and see how it changes your approach to shooting. See how you get to know what your images are going to look like, what your angle of view is going to be. I'd recommend it. Okay, reason number 4, dynamic range. I know I said earlier that I wasn't bashing smaller sensors, but it is a fact that the bigger the sensor, the bigger the dynamic range. And one thing I noticed was I could shoot a lot more images in one shoot or one take, rather than having to bracket so much. I'm not saying you won't ever bracket. I still bracket all the time, but I think if I show you this image, which I took in Kimmeridge Bay, this was taken without filters in one take, one shot, and it controlled the detail in the sky, and I was still able to pull detail out of the ground, and you know, I don't think I would have been able to do that with a camera with less dynamic range. And reason number 5, or last reason, is 2 features that are on this camera that are probably on most cameras these days, but I use them all the time. So first one is focus peaking. Focus peaking is where when you're in manual focus mode, what the camera will do on the screen is will show you, I use red as a colour, so it will highlight all of the edges that are in focus in red. This is super useful if you're going to take multiple exposures and you want to leave your camera in manual focus, because then you can see whether the foreground or the distance is in focus. And my bonus then is the histogram. The histogram, again, will be on all cameras these days, but with my SLR camera, I could see the histogram on the back of the screen when I've taken the shot. Here on this camera, I can see it on the back of the screen before I've taken the shot. I can see it in the electronic viewfinder before I've taken the shot. To me, this is invaluable in terms of, you know, exposing to the right, and we'll cover exposing to the right in a future episode. But you know, instantly being able to see what my exposure is, again, it just shortcuts some of the thinking that you need to do to grab good images. So in conclusion, I'm not saying go and buy a Nikon Z7, I'm not saying go and buy a mirrorless camera. I guess what I am saying is that if some of those features are available to you, or some of those habits, you know, using a single lens for a bit, are available to you, then go try it, go do it. Thank you. As I say, this is a bit of a weird one. We're in disused quarry in Dorset, which I'm potentially going to use for another vlog shortly, but I thought it'd be fun to do this here, even though I've had people wandering around me, drones flying above me, which is quite off-putting, but I'm gonna have to get used to it if I'm gonna do this vlogging thing. So thanks very much for watching, and if you liked this video, then please like, and if you want to see more of me, please subscribe. Thank you very much.